Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and the Pokemon TCG has a lot of really well-designed cards in it. And today I want to take a look at the best designed card from every set. And this is just looking at standard because, it's standard, that's the format people play, and also only the main sets. I was considering doing the mini sets. The mini sets are kind of weird though. Notably, Prismatic Evolutions is like almost all reprints, and that gets kind of strange. And I mean, the mini sets in general are just kind of weird. Also, Black Bolt and White Flare aren't out yet, so I didn't want to talk about those in this video. But tell me down below in the comments if you are interested in that video or stuff like expanded. But certainly, I figured standard is the thing to talk about. And what makes something well designed, it kind of depends. There's a lot of different cards I'm going to be talking about in this video, and I'll be breaking down why the card is well designed and what like aspect of it is so cool. I'm not going to be doing honorable mentions here. There are some other cool cards, obviously. I mean, the Pokemon TCG is a game I really like, and I think most of the cards are really well designed, but these, as I said, to me are just the coolest. And the first card here is Arven from the set Scarlet and Violet, the base set. And Arven is a supporter, which says on play you search your deck for an item and a tool, reveal it, put them into your hand, and then you shuffle your deck. The reason Arwen is so well designed is, first of all, I will say this card is like super strong. I'm pretty sure it's the strongest card on this list. Actually, no, it's not the strongest card on this list, but it is very strong. And it's not a problem, though, I wouldn't say. I'd say trainers being strong is good. You ultimately want strong support cards because, you actually want to be able to play the game. You could argue this is too strong, but and I wouldn't necessarily disagree, but I wouldn't say it's a problem. Regardless, it's a card though that notably searches for a tool. It's not the first card to search for a tool, but it is the first card to search for Pokemon tool in the era in which they are now no longer items, which is a really big deal. I will say this card is also in Obsidian Flames, and it's not going to be mentioned there, but it is probably the best design card in Obsidian Flames. But it is like a reprint, so I didn't want to include it there. But Arvin, searching out a tool is a really big deal, and it's a good card. So now tools are played a lot more. Partially it's played because tools are good, and partially tools are played because Arvin is good. Getting an item is, of course, good, and has always been good, but this has really brought tools to the forefront in the Pokemon TCG, which is just a really big deal. So ultimately, Arvin made tools meaningful, and the change to tools is something that now people remember more, I think, because of it. It's a card that just, again, really successfully almost single-handedly made this change. I will say Force Seal Stone kind of is a big part of why Arvin was good. It's not in the game anymore, and Arvin's still good, but that's a little weird. Force Seal Stone is certainly not, in my opinion, one of the best designed cards. It's kind of weird, kind of swingy, and I don't love that interaction with Arvin. And also, it's a tool, but when it was played with Arvin, it says item on it, but it's not used as an item. But in standard right now, I really love this card's design. It is strong and can be a little swingy if you get it versus if you don't get it. But overall, I think it is perfectly fine. The next card is from Paldea Evolved, and in my opinion, the best design card is Iono. Iono is a card that got so much love when it first came out and is still talked about. Some, I guess. I mean, it's played a lot. In my opinion, the best card in the game, I think, or the second best. Honestly, my opinion kind of changes day to day, but it's really strong. It's a supporter that says each player shuffles their hand and puts it on the bottom of their deck. Then if either player put any cards onto the bottom of their deck in this way, which presumably is happening, then each player draws a card for each of their remaining prize cards. So this supporter I've talked about a bunch, and it's really well designed because it does a few different things and also has a comeback factor to it. So first of all, it is a draw supporter, but in the early game, it's a draw supporter for you, and it's also a draw supporter for your opponent, which is nice because and one of the other cards I was considering was Artizone 2 mentioned in this video, but I'm not going to be talking about it really. And that card helps both players set up, and setting up is, if you're not setting up, you're not really having fun, right? So if a card helps both players set up, then that's cool, and Iono does that. Obviously helps you more, presumably, but it can help both players. And then in the late game, it's a disruptive supporter, but it disrupts both players, which is really well designed, in my opinion, also because it's something that has a tax to using it when it is such a strong disruptive card in the late game. Also comparing it to the older supporter N, which is generally regarded, or at least was regarded, as one of the best design cards ever. From what I've heard, I don't entirely agree, but I mostly agree. And that card is shuffle into your deck and then draw. And I don't know if it's a huge difference, but it is a difference that you can see in the card. And shuffling into your deck means you could draw the same cards you just saw, which isn't really what you want to do, because Usually you won't have that happen, so it's not like really the intended thing with the card, and ultimately, you want to be able to guarantee disrupt your opponent so they don't have the cards they have, which means that you're disrupting more because they are having less time to think about their actions and stuff like that. And also, it lets you guarantees that you see new cards, which I think is good. It's a little more interesting. It's not like a huge difference or anything. They are almost identical cards, but I did want to mention that, and I do think that that is an upgrade to the card, which again, N is already a pretty well-designed card in its own right. The best card from Obsidian Flames, though, is Cleffa. Cleffa is pretty well designed. I will say Obsidian Flames had, in my opinion, the weakest set of well-designed cards when I was looking at it, or maybe the weakest. I think it was the weakest, which surprised me. I always think of it as like a pretty cool set. But regardless, Cleffa is a really cool card, and it is the first of the new era baby Pokemon and the second best. Spoilers, Bidoof is not on this list. Obviously, it's not because it's not eligible, but it certainly would not be on the list if it was eligible either. In Cleffa is a baby Pokemon, so it has 30 HP, free retreat, free attack cost, and it has its attack, which says you draw till you have 7 cards in hand. Cleffa is good for setting up, and it's not something that is difficult to pull off. Requires relatively little resources put into it. You need to find it and I guess get into the active, but that's not that bad. And then it is a substantial liability because it is so weak as well. But it is just a cool card, and it was also a reference to some older Cleffas as well. Ultimately, this card's just pretty cool and pretty fun. Nothing super crazy going on with it at all. I mean, it has one attack which doesn't cost anything, and it doesn't evolve and doesn't really interact with other cards, but is a card that just feels simple and feels like it works really well. And if all the baby Pokemon were designed kind of like this, I'd be really happy with them. They are not. This is definitely, in my opinion, by far the best designed baby Pokemon. I think the rest are all badly designed. Bidoof is super broken and annoying. Maybe not broken, but like very, very strong. And then the others are all kind of bad. They're not all horrible, but they're relatively weak. And yeah, Cleffa though is just in that sweet spot in terms of balance. Balance is not the key factor for a lot of these cards, but is for Cleffa. And I think this card's just so fun. It's seen play. It still sees play. It has been pushed a little bit out of the game, I guess, with Bidoof, but not like entirely or anything like that. And again, still played a bunch. And it's been played a lot since it's been printed, though not like too much, I wouldn't say. The best card from Paradox Drift, in my opinion, is TM Evolution. This is another very strong card. I will say the card is probably a little weaker as time goes on, but TM Evolution is a TM, which means it's a tool that you attach. Again, this is another card that is, I mean, this is the main Arven target in Standard right now. It's not a universal card. It obviously only works with evolution decks, as you can see within the name of the card. And also, it doesn't really work on every turn. It's usually working on turn 1 or 2. But ultimately, it is a very strong card. And this is, I think, the main tool that's searched out with Arven. I'm not sure. It might be Rescue Board, which is like pretty good. But regardless, Team Evolution gets this card at the end of your turn, so you use the attack on it once, though, and it is colorless, and it is also by far the best of the TMs. TM Devolution is also kind of cool, and TM Turbo Energize is also kind of cool, and the other ones are kind of boring, in my opinion. But regardless, TM Evolution is really nice because it says you search for an evolution to your different bench Pokemon, and from your deck, and then evolve them. And it's useful. I will mention it does not trigger on play abilities from hand, because they're not from hand, they're from your deck, which is, I mean, it makes it a little bit weaker and makes it a little bit awkward at times. Obviously, that's like, kind of how the card has to work. And it might be too strong if it allowed you to trigger those abilities. I'm not sure. It doesn't come up too often, but it can come up certainly. And I figured I wouldn't mention it here. But ultimately, it's a pretty universal attack. And it's, like, again, it also has contributed to tools being more meaningful. And also within the Bidoof metagame that we're in. Bidoof is pretty annoying, and it stops item cards and stops rare candy, and rare candy is like super important in stage 2 decks, but Team Evolution kind of bypasses that. There are a lot of people who don't really like rare candy because it's kind of clunky, and this is not as clunky as rare candy. I mean, it's not in the combo in the same way, or it's at least another option to rare candy, which makes it less clunky, giving you more options. Overall, this card's pretty cool. It obviously encourages evolutions to be played as well. There have been some metagames where evolution Pokemon have been almost unplayable, and stage 2 specifically have been almost unplayable. And Team Evolution has, kind of undone that. I said that there were metagames, the metagames before the Scarlet and Violet era, stage 2s weren't really playable at all. I mean, Archeops and a few others that are kind of weird were playable, but not normal ones. But Team Evolution, as I said, super cool card. Not my personal favorite, but it is a really cool card. The next card we have here is from Temporal Forces. In this card, I went with Matang. I wasn't sure what to go with here. There's a few really solid options here, but Matang is a card with its ability Metal Maker on stage 1, saying once during your turn, you may look at the top 4 cards of your deck and attach any number of basic metal energies you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like. Then you shuffle the other cards there and put them on the bottom of your deck, not back into it, which means that if you use multiple Matangs, you will not see the same cards, which is kind of cool, I guess. Also, it does have synergy with certain bottom deck stuff. I guess I haven't actually done that. I've not messed with that, and I don't know anyone who has, but theoretically, you could do that. But ultimately, Matang is really cool because there was a card Magnezone, which was in. It was like a little over a year before. It might have been 2 years before. I don't remember what set it was in, and I don't feel like. Oh, I think Astral Radiance. So like 2 years before it or something. Regardless, it was in standard at the time, and it was kind of weak. It was played with Dialga V-Star, and then this came in and was better than the Mag Zone, which was a stage 2, which was a very similar ability, a stronger ability, but again, on a stage 2. Matang is a card that is pretty fun. It's not super strong. I think it is the weakest card on this list, but it's fun for more casual decks as well. Within Dialga, it's kind of, I mean, Dialga's not in standard, but it was cool with Dialga. It made that a pretty fun deck. Um, but then you have it with other things. You got it with Heatran, apparently. You can play it with Hop stuff. You could also play it with Goldengo. It's a really fun, more casual card that is still strong enough to be a somewhat competitive level card. And to me, it also hits that sweet spot. It's not as strong as Clef. It's definitely a weaker card, but it's within that range of that like sweet spot. So it is a pretty fun card. I know there are a lot of people who just really love this. And it's a little unreliable, but that can also make it kind of fun. It's not the card for everyone, but it is a really cool card and a unique card that a lot of people do like. The next one we have here is, this one might be a little controversial because it's from Twilight Masquerade and it's a Dracloak. Twilight Masquerade, I just want to quickly pull up the set. This has a lot of cards that I really didn't want to put, like Ogerpon, which I mean, it's not a horrible design, but it's like not quite there, or really any of those. You have like Monkey Dory, you have Dragapult, and they're like Bloomer's Luna EX as well. They're a little contentious because they're kind of broken, honestly. Dracloak is not broken though, but is very good. It is in the top deck in the game, Dragapult EX, based on like plays and realistically, like I think a lot of people think it's the top deck in the game. And Dragapult was really strong and kind of annoying. So if you don't like Dracloak for that reason, because it is a buff to Dragapult, I do understand. However, Dracloak is a card with a really solid ability, which says once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one into your hand, the other on the bottom of your deck. Again, bottom deck stuff, I do like that. But ultimately, this ability we've seen on the past, we saw it on Pidgeotto a while ago, and that card was kind of cool. It was a little weak though, a bit of a liability, and ultimately a card that is, didn't have a good stage 2 either, really. This is a card that is played. It's not the strongest engine, but it's a solid engine, and it's a pretty fun engine. Personally, I think my favorite engine in Standard. I'm not sure on that one, but I think it might be. And I mean, maybe Noctowl I like a little more, but that's more of a me thing. But regardless, Drake is a cool engine that isn't super explosive, encourages you to get good cards in your hand, but you have some choice over it, but not exact choice, which I do like. Overall, as I said, you have choice, and so it creates interesting decisions that aren't like crazy, as opposed to something like Noctowl where you have your entire deck, or and Zoroark EX where you're just drawing 2 random cards. Dracloak, you are seeing 2 random cards, but you are choosing one, choosing to leave something for later, which is pretty cool. Also, it has a usable attack. It's not amazing, but it's an okay attack. It feels very fair on it. I feel like you will use it from time to time, which is pretty fun. Overall, I feel like the card fits really well within the Dragapult deck. It makes it a cooler deck, in my opinion. It does make it stronger, but makes it more well-rounded, which I think is good. I think Dragapult could be, toned down a little bit, but Dracoloak, in my opinion, is a really cool card in the game. The top card from Stellar Crown, in my opinion, is Glass Trumpet. I really struggled to go with Stellar Crown. I'll also pull up Stellar Crown. The Stellar Crown, most of the cards that are good are the Trap Ghost cards, like Trap Ghost EX, the Noctowl engine, which I mentioned Noctowl. I think it's a fun card, but most of these are pretty I don't know if it's situational, but like they go in one specific deck. Even if they have some versatility, they really have to go in one way. There's also Crispin, but I didn't really love that. It's a little annoying at times, I guess. And also there is Joltik, but like Vueltic's design certainly is fine enough. It's kind of cool, but it's not like amazing design. However, Glass Trump is a card that I mean, I just like this card. I'm not gonna lie. It's a card that says you can only use this if you have a Terra in play, encouraging Terra usage, and then you choose up to 2 your bench colorless Pokemon and attach a basic energy from your discard to each of them. The reason I like this card is because it goes with different decks and is kind of combo based, and it's pretty fun. We've seen cards like this in the past, like Mirage Gate. Also something like Dark Patch or Aqua Patch or something like that. And those cards are really good and kind of broken. And that's a bit of an issue. They are kind of fun because they allow you to get all this energy on the board, but they just do it way too quickly, way too reliably. To the point where they're a bit of a problem. Glass Trumpet is not that. Glass Trumpet I feel like feels a lot more fair, but is really really solid, really strong, fun, but not necessarily the true build around where if you completely whiff it you can't do anything. And also because it's two separate Pokemon, it encourages different things going on. You can see it in like the EV box deck Flareon, but that does play different evolutions in it. Also, you could play it in Raging Bolt where it's just a little bit of extra damage, which feels fair. You play it in Terra Box for again some extra energy on the board. Of course, you got Terrapagos. You got it was played in Palkia as well previously, where it was pretty like all right for getting up a Trap Ghost where it's just like okay value. And again, it's just in like an okay value card that I feel like again hits the right balance and also can be explosive and kind of crazy, but again does require setup. You need colorless Pokemon, you need energy in the discard, you need Terra Pokemon, and it kind of leans obviously towards Area Zero Underdepths and the Noctowl package, but doesn't have to go that direction either. So I do like the way they took this card. The best card, in my opinion, in terms of design from Surging Sparks is Pikachu EX. Pikachu EX, I wasn't sure if I wanted to put this card because its design's really interesting. It's a card that is a bit counterintuitive because you have your ability, which gives you increased tankiness, saying that if you would be one-shotted by damage from an attack, then you're not, your remaining HP becomes 10, which I mean, it's good. It's a very strong ability. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but it is very strong. Your HP is a little low, but not like super low. And then Topaz Bolt for 1 Grass, 1 Lightning, 1 Metal does 300, and you discard 3 energy from this Pokemon. However, you can't really attack with this back to back really easily because it's super hard to pay, right? And then you lose all the energy, or 3 energy, which is probably all of the energy. Ultimately, Pikachu EX's attack is cool. It slots pretty well into Joltik and actually has like amazing synergy there, which is pretty fun. Also within Terra Box, it works really well. So it actually has decks that can pay it, which I think is the only stellar attack that people use in the game. I might be missing something. I know there's like Hydreigon. That's the second one I'm thinking of, and there is also Terrapagos, but those are not amazing. But Pikachu EX's attack is really good, and it feels fair for the stellar attack. And it only has a stellar attack, so it needs to be fair or good. It could be broken, but in order for it to see play, it needs to be a solid attack here. And I think they hit the nail on the head with the attack. And then the ability is fun, especially in my opinion, with stuff like Monkey Dory in the game, which means that it is tanky, but it's not always tanky. Your opponent might have a way to counter the tankiness, meaning that it's a little bit risky to rely on it surviving, but you also need to consider that it could survive, and you might want to set up a second attack. So it creates some interesting dynamics, in my opinion, with this card. And it just, I really like the combo of the good ability and the good attack, and the fact that they're not just the attack sets up the ability or something basic like that. It's a really unique design, and I think it just works together really well. The best design card from Journey Together, in my opinion, is Moractis. Moractis is a card that I thought was like, I kind of liked when I saw it, but I didn't think too much of it. I didn't think it was going to be that played, but it's been played a lot, and in my opinion, is super fun. It has a few different things going on with it. I will mention it does have a higher retreat cost than a lot of Pokemon, so it's a bit committal here. And it has like okay HP for a single prize basic, and its attack here is corner for 1 colorless, doing 20 and stop your opponent from retreating, which can be useful for trapping, but will not trap them forever, which is cool because it buys some time, and it's not going to buy infinite time. If it didn't do any damage, it would just be annoying and be used as a win condition for a control setup, which is kind of boring. And we've seen that with Snorlax and Mawile and Welcome Ogerpon EX with double turbo energy, and that's not so fun. Then you also can hit weakness, which is kind of cool. You could hit resistance as well. There's a lot of interesting scenarios with the attack that is a relatively simple attack, but again, it becomes kind of interesting. Then you have the ability, which is also cool, called Exploding Needles. If this Pokemon isn't active and would be knocked out, then you put 6 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. This isn't that much damage, but this is a really cool ability. I don't play that much Pokemon TCG Pocket, but one of my favorite Pokemon in the game is Druddigen, which has a similar ability. It's a little bit different. It's weaker, but the damage numbers are lower, and it can survive hits a little more. And I thought a Pokemon like that would never really be viable in the current standard Pokemon TCG. However, Moractis really is able to do that because it's doing substantial damage, not crazy damage, but all right damage, and also it's a card that has a usable attack, but this card feels very fair, fun, and a really cool tech card to include in a lot of different decks. Also, one of the main decks that's played in is Mario Scrimsnarl, paired with Frostlass, which also adds an extra layer to it where now you're getting damage to yourself, so it's another downside to put into play. But there's a lot of really interesting dynamics with this card in general. The final best design card here is from Destined Rivals. This one also might be kind of controversial, which is Shaman. I will say Destined Rivals has a wide variety of different cards, which are mostly just trainers Pokemon, which are like kind of cool, but not truly amazing designs in my opinion. So I decided to go with Shaman. Shaman is a bench barrier card with its ability here, and it protects the bench Pokemon that don't have rule boxes by damage from your opponent's attacks. I will say this doesn't stop Dragapult. That's just kind of how these cards are always designed. I would not mind it if it stopped Dragapult. That would be kind of cool. But regardless, this card does not protect your rule box Pokemon, which is nice because rule box Pokemon are really good in the game, right? I don't think they need more help. Also, some cards like this they're kind of overpowered, right? Like the Manaphy, which rotated. I think within the last rotation is a card that was like played so often, and this has 10 more HP, which actually makes it worse because you can't search it with Buddy Buddy Poffin, which in my opinion is a really valid nerf, especially because you'll be naturally playing Buddy Buddy Poffin with the cards that are white and Shaman together because you want to protect those weaker bench Pokemon. Overall, I think Shaman is just a really, really well designed card. It's not insane, but it is cool. Also, its attack is usable, so that's kind of cool. But overall, Shaman just. I think it is good to have bench barrier effects in the game because spread can be a bit of an issue. It is a bit of an issue now, and Shaman doesn't actually protect against like half of the bench barrier thing or the bench attacking Pokemon in the game. However, it is still a card that I do think needs to be in the game and will be important at some point, probably. I mean, it's certainly played now as well. I don't think it's that good now, but it is played a good amount. But overall, tell me down below in the comments if you agree with my takes or if you disagree. You think any of these cards are actually badly designed, or if some of the sets have a better design card. But I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all the good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.